Namaste, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Anna Publishing Monthly Research and Ethics series. I am Dr. Aamarpali Roy, and it is a pleasure to begin this structured academic initiative focused on research integrity, responsible publication practices, and ethical scholarship. Today's session is titled Fundamentals of Research Ethics Foundations Every Researcher Must Know. Whether you are a faculty member, a PhD scholar, a postgraduate student, or an early career researcher, understanding research ethics is not optional, it is foundational. This series is designed to provide clear, practical, and academically grounded guidance on the issues directly affecting your research journey. This episode marks the launch of monthly academic knowledge initiative presented by Anna Publishing Private Limited. Each month, we will take up one focused theme related to research, publication, and ethics. The aim is to build clarity gradually, not through scattered discussions, but through a structured and thematic approach. The series is multidisciplinary. The principles of ethical research apply across medical sciences, nursing, social sciences, management, education, and beyond. Over time, this initiative is intended to strengthen responsible research practices and promote academic integrity across disciplines. Now, the question arises, why begin with research ethics? Because globally we are witnessing increasing retractions of published articles. Articles are being withdrawn not only due to methodological flaws but often because of ethical lapses. There is growing publication pressure in academia. The publish or perish culture. While productivity is important, speed should never compromise integrity. We are also seeing a rise in predatory journals that exploit researchers who may not fully understand ethical publishing standards. At the same time, institutions, funding agencies, and indexing bodies are applying stricter ethical scrutiny. In this environment, understanding research ethics is no longer just theoretical knowledge, it is professional survival and academic responsibility. Before we go further, let us define what we mean by research ethics. Research ethics refer to the moral principles and professional standards that guide responsible conduct in research. It is not limited to medical trials or clinical studies. It applies to all form of systematic inquiry, whether in health sciences, social sciences, management, education, or technology. Research ethics govern how we design studies, how we collect data, how we treat participants, how we analyze findings, and how we publish results. In simple terms, research ethics ensures that the pursuit of knowledge does not compromise human dignity, scientific integrity, or public trust. It is about doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Research ethics is non negotiable for several reasons. First, it protects research participants. Any study involving human beings must prioritize their safety, autonomy, and well being. Second, it ensures scientific credibility. If ethical standards are compromised, even strong data becomes questionable. Third, it maintains institutional trust. Universities and research organizations are judged not only by output but by integrity. And finally, it safeguards the researcher's own reputation. A single ethical violation can have long term professional consequences. Ethics is not a bureaucratic requirement, it is foundation of sustainable academic growth. Our modern understanding of research ethics did not emerge automatically. It developed in response to serious ethical violation in the past. After World War II, the Nuremberg Code in 1947 established the principle that voluntary consent of participants is essential. Later, in 1964, the Declaration of Helsinki provided ethical guidelines specifically for medical research involving human subjects. These documents laid the groundwork for what we know now, recognized as informed consent, risk assessment, and independent ethical review. Over time, countries developed institutional review boards and ethics committee to ensure that research proposals are examined before studies begin. Understanding this historical evolution reminds us that ethical guidelines exist because mistakes were made in the past. They are safeguards, not obstacles. At the heart of research ethics are four core principles. The first is autonomy. Participants have the right to make informed decisions about whether to take part in research. This includes the right to refuse or withdraw without penalty. The second is beneficence. Research should aim to contribute positively, whether by advancing knowledge, improving practice, or informing policy. Third is non maleficence. This means do not harm. Risks must be minimized and harm must never be intentional or ignored. The fourth principle is justice. The benefits and the burdens of research should be distributed fairly. No group should be exploited or unfairly excluded. Together, these principles form ethical backbone of responsible research across disciplines. One of the most fundamental application of research ethics is informed consent. Informed consent means that participants voluntarily agree to take part in research after receiving adequate and understandable information about the study. This includes the purpose of research, procedure involved, potential risks, potential benefits, and how the data will be used. Consent must be free from coercion. Participants should never feel pressured by authority, institutional hierarchy, or personal relationships. Equally important is the right to withdraw. Participants can withdraw at any stage without facing consequences. In most cases, consent should be documented in writing. However, in certain minimal risk or community based studies, verbal consent may be ethically acceptable provided it is properly recorded and approved by ethics committee. Informed consent is not just a signature on paper, it is the process of communication and respect. Closely linked to consent is the responsibility to maintain confidentiality and protect participants' data. Confidentiality means that information shared by participants is not disclosed in a way that identifies them without permission. In many studies, researchers use anonymization techniques, removing names, codes, or identifiable details to protect privacy. Data must be stored securely. This includes password protected digital files, encrypted storage devices, and restricted access to authorized personnel only. Researchers must also be cautious while presenting findings. Even indirect identifiers, such as small demographic details, can sometimes reveal identity. In today's digital research environment, data protection is not optional, it is an ethical obligation. Respect for confidentiality strengthens trust between researchers and participants. Before any research involving human participants begin, it must undergo review by ethics committee or institutional review board, often referred to as an IRB. The purpose of this review is to ensure that the study design minimizes risk and upholds ethical standards. The committee examines whether informed consent is appropriate, whether confidentiality measures are adequate, and whether vulnerable populations are protected. Vulnerable groups may include children, elderly individuals, Economically disadvantaged populations or those with limited decision making capacity. Ethics approval must be obtained before data collection begins. Retrospective approval is generally not acceptable. Importantly, ethical oversight is not a barrier to research. It is a safeguard that protects participants, institutions, and researchers themselves. Responsible research begins with responsible review. Research misconduct refers to serious violation of academic integrity. The three core forms are fabrication, falsification, and plagiarism. Fabrication means making up data that never existed. Falsification refers to manipulating research processes, data, or results to produce a desired outcome. Plagiarism involves presenting someone else's work, ideas, or expressions as one's own without proper acknowledgement. In addition to these, data manipulation, selective reporting, and image alteration are increasingly scrutinized in modern publishing. Misconduct damages not only an individual researcher's credibility but also institutional reputation and public trust in science. In many cases, misconduct leads to retraction, blacklisting, funding withdrawal, and long term professional consequences. Ethics in research is not optional, it is foundational. When we discuss plagiarism, many assume it only refers to direct copying. However, plagiarism has multiple forms. Direct plagiarism is verbatim copying without citation. Self plagiarism occurs when authors reuse substantial portion of their own previously published work without disclosure. Mosaic plagiarism involves patching together phrases from different sources while returning original structure. Improper citation, even when sources are listed but not accurately referenced, can also be ethically problematic. It is important to distinguish between similarity, percentage, and plagiarism. Software similarity reports are tools for screening, not final judgments. Context matters. Responsible scholarship requires transparency, attribution, and originality. Authorship carries responsibility. Only individuals who have made substantial intellectual contributions to the research should be listed as authors. This typically includes involvement in study design, data analysis, drafting, or critical revision of the manuscript. Ghost authorship occurs when someone who made significant contribution is not acknowledged. Gift or honorary authorship occurs when individuals are listed despite minimal or no contribution. Both practices are unethical. The corresponding author has an additional responsibility to ensure that all authors approve the final manuscript and agree to submission. Clear communication among research teams can prevent disputes and ethical violations related to authorship. Authorship must reflect genuine intellectual contribution. Gift authorship occurs when individuals are listed as authors despite not making a substantial contribution to the research. This may happen due to seniority, hierarchy, or institutional pressure. Ghost authorship, on the other hand, occurs when someone who has made a meaningful contribution is omitted from the author list. This can include junior researchers or research personnel who played significant role. Both practices distort academic accountability. Authorship is not a courtesy, it is a declaration of responsibility. Academic pressure to publish, promotion requirements, and institutional expectations sometimes contribute to unethical authorship decisions. However, transparency in contribution statements and early discussions among research teams can prevent most disputes. Ethical authorship protects not only individuals but also the credibility of the publication itself. Publication ethics extends beyond the conduct of research into the dissemination of findings. A transparent peer review process ensures that manuscripts are evaluated fairly, objectively, and without bias. Authors must respect reviewer feedback and editorial decisions. Conflict of interest disclosure is essential. Any financial, institutional, or personal relationship that could influence interpretations of result must be declared openly. Duplicate submission. Submitting the same manuscript to the multiple journals at the same time is considered unethical because it wastes editorial and reviewer resources. Responsible reporting includes presenting both positive and negative findings, clearly stating limitations and avoiding exaggerated conclusions. Academic journals functions on trust between authors, reviewers, editors, and readers. When publication ethics is upheld, scholarly communication remains credible and sustainable. A conflict of interest arises when secondary interests have the potential to influence professional judgment. Financial conflicts may include research funding, consultancy payments, stock ownership, or sponsorship from industry sources. Institutional conflict may occur when researchers feel pressured to produce outcomes aligned with organizational expectations. Personal conflicts can involve relationships, collaborations, or rivalries that may consciously or unconsciously affect objectivity. Having a conflict of interest is not automatically unethical, failing to disclose it is. Transparency allows readers and reviewers to evaluate findings with appropriate context. Disclosure strengthens credibility rather than weakening it. Ethics is not about perfection, it is about accountability. As research increasingly becomes multidisciplinary, ethical complexity also increases. Data sharing is one of the major challenges. Different disciplines may follow different data protection standards, storage practices, or publication norms. Clear agreements on ownership, access, and usage must be established before collaboration begins. Cross institution collaboration requires alignment of ethics approval. When multiple institutions are involved, researcher must ensure that all necessary ethical clearances are obtained and documented properly. Cultural sensitivity is another important consideration, especially in community based or international research. Practices acceptable in one context may not be appropriate in another. Respecting cultural norms, language differences, and local governance structures strengthens ethical integrity. Multidisciplinary research expands knowledge, but it also demands great coordination and transparency. Many ethical violations are not intentional misconduct, they often arise from lack of awareness. One common mistake is beginning data collection without prior ethics approval. Ethical clearance must always precede research involving human participants. Another issue is copying methodology sections from previously published papers without proper citation. Even methodological descriptions require attribution when adapted. Improper citation, incomplete referencing, inaccurate quotation, or failure to credit original sources can also lead to academic concerns. In hierarchical academic systems, beginners may feel pressure to add senior faculty names without genuine contribution. However, authorship must reflect actual intellectual involvement. Awareness and mentorship can prevent most early career ethical mistakes. Ethical literacy is as important as research methodology. Ethical violations carry serious consequences. Retraction of published work is one of the most visible outcomes. A retracted article remains permanently documented in academic records. Career damage may include institutional inquiry, suspension of research privileges, or loss of funding opportunities. In certain cases, legal implications may arise, particularly where participants' harm, data misuse, or financial misconduct is involved. Perhaps the most lasting consequences is loss of credibility. Trust once damaged is difficult to restore. Research careers are built over years, but reputational harm can occur in a single ethical lapse. Therefore, prevention through awareness is always better than correction after violation. Before initiating any research project, it is useful to pause and conduct a simple ethical checklist. First, ensure ethics approval has been obtained wherever required. Second, confirm that a clear and understandable consent form is prepared. Third, develop a data management plan. Decide how data will be stored, who will access it, and how long it will be retained. Fourth, clarify authorship agreement early in the research process. Defining roles in advance prevents future conflict. And finally, conduct plagiarism screening before submission. Similarity reports should be reviewed carefully and corrected wherever necessary. Many of these structured checkpoints are discussed in great depth in my book, Ethics in Research and Publication, for those who wish to explore the framework more systematically. Ethical research is not accidental, it is planned. If we summarize today's discussion into five key takeaways, ethics begin at the idea stage, not at publication. Consent is a process of communication and respect. Authorship equals responsibility. Transparency builds credibility. And ultimately, integrity sustains research careers. These principles are simple, but their consistent practice defines professional excellence. In our next episode, we will focus specifically on plagiarism in academic writing. We'll discuss practical strategies to paraphrase effectively, cite accurately, interpret similarity reports, and maintain originality in scholarly work. This session will be particularly useful for early career researchers. I look forward to continuing this academic journey with you. Thank you for joining this session on fundamentals of research ethics. If you found this discussion valuable, I encourage you to share it with fellow researchers and academic colleagues. Stay connected for future episodes in this monthly research and ethics series. For those who wish to explore these concepts in greater depth, I have discussed many of these frameworks in my book, Ethics in Research and Publication, which may serve as an additional reference. Responsible research strengthens academic communities, and each of us play a role in upholding that standard. Thank you.